Chapter 9. The Nation of Noah, peace be upon him, and those who altered their faith. The dilemmas being faced by my teacher Farhan Ahmed and Jamshed had plunged me into deep introspection. Saleh had a fair idea of the mental anguish I was going through. To divert my attention, he said, "It has escaped your mind that we had actually come here to meet the last prophet, peace be upon him. You stopped here on our way. In the meantime, he has himself asked for you. Has Papa not met the last prophet yet, peace be upon him?" Anwar asked, quite surprised. Saleh clarified, "Every person who returns successful from the plane of judgment goes straight to the last prophet first. The prophet rewards him by giving him a glass of water from Kausar with his own hands. His family members are also called on that occasion. Thereafter they merrily proceed and take a spot of their choice on the bank of the pond, or as your father calls it, a lake. However, your father was fond of roaming in the plain of judgment. Thus, prior to his meeting with the prophet and at his request, he was sent back to the plain of judgment. However, now the prophet has himself asked for him." "Is everything all right? Why has he been summoned?" Naima inquired. Saleh replied, "As the accountability of different nations continues, now is the turn of the nation of Prophet Noah, peace be upon him. But his nation has flatly denied that they had received any message of God from him." What a position! How can they say that they have not received any message of God? They were drowned right there in the world because they had denied the message of Prophet Noah. After that decision from God, how can they say that Prophet Noah, peace be upon him, did not pass any message to them, and that too in the presence of God? Arifa asked. Layla added further to her earlier comment, "And even if they have taken a stubborn stance and have chosen to lie, Quran had stated that the mouths of such people will be shut and their hands and feet will be asked to testify. How can they say such a thing?" Saleh explained the situation further. The people who are making that claim are not people of Prophet Noah's nation who had incurred the punishment. They are the children of those who had embraced the faith as prophesied by him, and then their siblings inhabited the world. Nevertheless, to a significant number of them, no prophet was sent after Prophet Noah. They relied on guidance about the oneness of God and Day of Judgment that was in essence a remnant of Prophet Noah's teachings, even though after the passage of such a long time, they may not have recognized it as such, and they may have even distorted it to some extent. It is for this reason that they have denied having received any guidance from Prophet Noah. I interjected to further clarify Saleh's reply. The fact is that majority of the humanity originated from Prophet Noah, peace be upon him. A number of groups among them, particularly the descendants of his son Shem, who inhabited the central areas of earth like Middle East and its adjoining regions, benefited from a continuous chain of prophets and messengers. Yet there were many groups who did not directly benefit from a prophet after Prophet Noah. In particular, after Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, no prophets were sent to nations other than his descendants. These people are now considered as either descendants of Prophet Noah or belonging to his nation. At the time of accountability, they were presented along with the nation of Prophet Noah. However, they did not directly know the teachings of Prophet Noah, nor did they appreciate their relationship to him in a way other people like the people of the book and the Muslims did. Therefore, they denied ever having received the message of Prophet Noah, peace be upon him. Their refusal is not entirely unjustified either. Saleh added, Abdullah is correct. It is a fact that people from the nation of Prophet Muhammad delivered the message of God to such offsprings of the nation of Prophet Noah. For this reason, all initial and final witnesses from the nation of the last prophet are being called upon to bear witness, as in the previous world they had conveyed the truth to these people through their actions. Today, these witnesses will testify that one way or the other, they had managed to convey the message of oneness of God to these people. This message was the real inheritance of the teachings of Prophet Noah and was forgotten later on. Following the arrival of the last prophet, this message was preserved till the day of judgment, and his followers fulfilled their responsibility of passing it on to the children of Noah. Naima looked at me and asked, why were they not presented along with the nation of the last prophet then? They would have been if they had embraced Islam. However, they did not do so and continued to follow the disfigured religion of their ancestors. Since every nation is being presented for accountability along with its prophet, all such people have been brought forward as the nation of Prophet Noah. The reason is that their forefathers had embraced faith through Prophet Noah. I replied and then summarized the discussion in these words. In short, Prophet Noah, peace be upon him, personally delivered the message of God to the early followers of his nation, while the Muslims delivered it to the later generations, being the upholders of the message of oneness of God and Day of Judgment. And that was the main message of all prophets, including Prophet Noah. Come on, Abdullah, we are being called, Saleh said to me. We got up and started moving towards our destination. Once again, we were in the presence of the last prophet of God, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. He had the same radiance on his face as well as the same attractiveness and aura that I had observed when I saw him the first time. I felt as if I had known him since centuries, and his love continued to grow in my heart. I was sitting at the rear of the gathering of his companions, looking at his glowing face as he talked to them. Then someone went close to him and said something in his ear. Saleh whispered in my ear, That is his servant Anas, and he is telling him about you. At that moment, the Prophet raised his head to look at me, and welcomed me with a heartening smile, confirming what Saleh had whispered in my ear. Then he smiled and said to the people sitting around him, The nation of one of the forefathers of humanity and prophet of God, Noah, has refused to accept his testimony by saying that he did not directly deliver any message to them. In fact, my followers had delivered the same message to them. All of you sitting here believe in all prophets of God, and the religion that I passed on to you is the same religion that was given to Prophet Noah. It is therefore your responsibility to present yourself in the court of the Almighty and testify on behalf of Prophet Noah. You have to testify that the invitation to believe in one God and righteous deeds that Prophet Noah had extended to his followers, and which I also passed on to you, was delivered to his nation by you, without any omissions or additions, thereby fulfilling his and my mission. He then asked his companion Abu Bakr, sitting next to him, to rise. Abu Bakr, may God be pleased with him, did so. The Prophet said to the people around him, He is my friend Abu Bakr. In addition to him, there are followers present here representing my nation from my time to just before the day of judgment. All of you should follow him to the court of the Almighty and be witnesses to the truth that you bear. The Prophet, peace be upon him, rose as he finished his sentence. After that, everyone also stood up. Abu Bakr kissed his hand and moved on. Following his lead, everyone kissed the Prophet's hand. My turn was at the end. I also availed the sterling honor. Thereafter, all of us started towards the plain of judgment with Abu Bakr, may God be pleased with him, in the lead. I was walking at the rear of the group, along with the exalted personalities. Saleh was not with me. Before departing from the Prophet's gathering, he had told me that I would have to testify on my own, and that he would meet me when we return. On the way, a thought came to my mind that I was not worthy of representing the nation of the last Prophet, along with such honorable and exalted personalities. This feeling gradually overwhelmed me to the extent that I decided to leave the group quietly. Who would notice? The Almighty would call someone else from my era in my place. I started to walk slower with this in mind. Soon the distance between the rest of the group and me became considerable. I decided to avail this opportunity. Just as I turned around to head back in the direction of Qasr, I heard a voice behind me. Abdullah, what are you doing? I nervously turned around and saw Abu Bakr, the truthful, standing behind me. I felt ashamed, as if I had been caught stealing. My initial inclination was to make an excuse, but then I realized that this was not the previous world. God could reveal the truth to him at that very moment. Therefore, I told him the whole story, and in addition requested him to take someone else along rather than me. Abu Bakr, may God be pleased with him, started to laugh. Then he said, God selected people for the testimony himself. He is the one who informed me through an angel about the reason for your intent to leave. He gently held my hand and started to walk forward. On the way, he advised me, Listen, Abdullah, the Almighty himself has selected every person in this group. Do you know what the criterion is for this selection? I remained silent and looked at him. He answered the question himself. In the eyes of your Lord, the most eligible people to bear witness are those who rose above all prejudices, emotions, and desires to make submission to the truth their prime concern, and then dedicated their lives to the oneness of God and hereafter. In your era, the religious people may have managed to rise above their desires, but most failed to overcome prejudice and emotions. Sectarian and communal priorities had enslaved their thoughts. They would accept only the ideas proposed by people from their own sect. They would call people only towards their sect. They lived their lives under strong influence of the perceived greatness of their leaders. In contrast, you lived your life only under the influence and appreciation of the greatness of the Almighty. You accepted the truth, no matter what the price was, and applied it to your life, regardless of any prejudice. Oneness of God was your main concern. The prime objective of your life was to help people prepare for this encounter with their Lord. In addition, you did not confine your work just to your own nation. Rather, you were involved in a long struggle to spread Quran's message of oneness of God and the hereafter amongst the non-Muslims. These are the reasons that have led to your selection today. Prophet Noah, peace be upon him, his hands held together in front of him, was standing to the right of the divine throne. All of us, under the leadership of Abu Bakr, the truthful, stood behind. In front of us, as far as the eyes could see, was a sea of human beings. Every one of them appeared worried and looked ill. They were standing with their heads bowed. Their faces were dark with fear. In the surroundings, apart from a faint whisper, no voice could be heard. This was the nation of Prophet Noah, who in fact were people born to his children. In a little while, a loud voice was heard. The witnesses of Noah be presented in the court. I expected that Abu Bakr, may God be pleased with him, would move forward and say something. However, at this juncture, I saw that the last prophet came forward and stood in front of the throne. A voice was heard. "Speak, O Muhammad, what do you want to say?" The prophet, peace be upon him, spoke in the presence of the one and only. "My Lord, you gave me prophethood and revealed your book upon me. In that book you informed me that Prophet Noah had also brought with him the same religion that you endowed me with, which was based on a belief in the oneness of God. I bore witness upon the same righteous religion and passed it on to my nation. Now these people are present here in front of you to bear witness that they took this righteous religion from me and passed it on to the children of Noah without any addition or omission." The Almighty said, "You have spoken the truth. Present your followers." On this, Abu Bakr, the truthful, took a few steps forward and stood next to the Prophet Noah, peace be upon him. All of us also moved forward and stood behind him. A voice was heard. "Who are you?" Abu Bakr, may God be pleased with him, introduced himself and then introduced each of us by stating our names and the time periods we lived in. He stated that we were all from the nation of Prophet Muhammad. He said that the final prophet bore witness of the true religion upon us and told us that Prophet Noah had also brought the same religion with him. He further stated that we then took this religion of Prophet Noah, peace be upon him, and Muhammad, peace be upon him, to all the nations of the world. We also took this truth to those who were present in front of the Almighty as the nation of Prophet Noah. After this evidence, there was no excuse left for the nation of Prophet Noah. It was apparent that the religion of Prophet Noah was the same as that of Prophet Muhammad, and that his followers had delivered this religion to the rest of the world. Now, the accountability of the nation of Prophet Noah was to take place in the light of this evidence. We had completed our task, hence we embarked on our return journey. Our group was moving along on the way to the pond of Kausar. This time, the leader of our small convoy was the final prophet himself. Accompanied by angels, we were passing through the plain of judgment, heading towards Kausar. I stayed at the rear of this group, afraid of embarrassing myself. Suddenly, someone put a hand on my shoulder and said, "And where were you trying to run away, my friend?" I looked back and saw Saleh, who was smiling. I remained silent, feeling embarrassed. He spoke laughingly. Praise the Lord that the leader of this group was Abu Bakr, the truthful. If Umar was in his place, he would have given you at least a few lashes as punishment. I also started to laugh. After a pause, I said, "In fact, it is not about Abu Bakr or Umar. May God be pleased with them. The Honorable Umar would have done the same. The reason is that the one who arranged it all is the same. That is my merciful God, who has concealed my sins throughout my life." A worrying thought then came to my mind. I asked Saleh, "By the way, how did you come to know about it? Does everyone know about it as well?" No, Abu Bakr is very kind-hearted. He did not say a word. As for me, I know about it as God sent a message to him regarding it through me. Anyway, your statement is correct. Guess what was the message that the Almighty asked me to take to Abu Bakr? He answered his own question without waiting for my reply. Look after my servant. In his humility, he is about to neglect his responsibility. I bowed my head with mixed feelings of embarrassment and gratitude. After a few moments, I inquired from Saleh, how is the accountability process going on in the plane of judgment? The evidence against nations of various prophets is being presented. All prophets and messengers are testifying that they had passed the message of God to their respective nations. After that, the sins of all those people whose deeds were largely in accordance with the teachings of the prophets are forgiven, and their success is announced. Saleh replied. I recalled everything. Saleh had told me earlier that after the initial period of accountability, general accountability would begin. I had a faint hope that perhaps at that stage a decision for the salvation of my son Jamshed may be announced. However, obviously, I could not do anything for him. I inquired from Saleh, what is the state of people over there? Don't ask. No one is able to comfort anyone. Furthermore, no one knows what is going to be his fate. We were walking behind the entourage, talking, when suddenly we heard a loud noise. The reason for it was that a huge crowd of Muslims was heading towards the Prophet, peace be upon him, chanting his name. They were screaming, crying, and begging the Prophet to help them, saying that they were his followers. However, the angels were beating them with lashes to keep them away. They had become so fed up due to the hardships in the plane of judgment that despite being beaten up, they were still trying to move towards the Prophet. The Prophet appeared to them as the only ray of hope. On seeing this, the Prophet, peace be upon him, called the leader of the angels. He asked him for the reason this treatment was being meted out to these people, despite the fact that they claimed to be his followers, ascribed their faith to him, and mentioned his name in their proclamation of faith. The angel answered with utmost respect, O Prophet of God, no doubt they take your name, but you are not aware of all sorts of innovations, alterations, and changes that these people had introduced in your religion after you had left the world. On hearing this, an expression of extreme dislike appeared on the face of the Prophet, and he said, May those people be distanced from me who distorted my religion after I had left. Saying this, the Prophet, peace be upon him, turned towards the pond of Kausar and walked away, with the rest of the people in the convoy following suit. I was also about to move forward, but Saleh stopped me by saying, Wait and see what happens here. I saw that the angels then started to attack these people heartlessly. In the meantime, more angels joined them from the left of the plane of judgment. They started to beat them mercilessly. Their strength was such that when they lashed out once with a whip, thousands of people were hit by it and were thrown yards away, crying and screaming. In a short while, the entire area close to the pond was cleared of such people. Beaten up and crying in pain, they who had invented new beliefs and actions in the religion of Islam left that place, moaning and groaning on their humiliation and ill fate. I was standing next to Saleh, watching the horrible scene. I thought to myself, they were the unfortunate people for whom guidance of Quran and practical example of the Sunnah of the Prophet were not sufficient. Therefore, they made additions and alterations to the religion and tried to deface it. They had a senseless logic for their misguided and sick deeds. When someone with insight tried to make them understand their fallacies, they became their mortal enemies. They were told that there was no room for inventing beliefs outside Quran, and no deeds apart from the ones that were part of the Sunnah would be reliable in the court of the Almighty. But they regarded such advice as absurd and remained engrossed in their misguided ways. Thus, they had suffered the consequences of their attitude today. As I was thinking about it, Saleh said to me, Abdullah, I have not managed to grasp this habit of human beings. Why is it that after receiving such lucid guidance, nations of all the prophets heavily indulged in alterations and innovations? You have asked a good question. I also deliberated a lot on this issue during my previous life. In my opinion, the real reason for this tendency was exaggeration and extremism. Human beings are very emotional by nature. They go to extremes in either direction. The followers of the prophets also suffered from it. Some people, because of their inclination towards materialism, ignored the teachings of the prophets, while others went to the other extreme in their love for prophets and righteous people, and enthusiasm for worship. It is these exaggerations and extremist behaviors that became the main reasons for innovation in religion. Saleh nodded on hearing my reply and said, The most glaring example of this extremist behavior and exaggeration were the Christians. On one hand, they discarded the law brought by Prophet Moses, and on the other, they invented a creed of self-denial and introduced such worships, practices, and innovations in the religion that it became extremely difficult for an ordinary person to live a normal life and yet maintain a religious identity. In addition to the innovations in deeds, extreme exaggeration in beliefs also became rampant amongst them. Despite being a nation with so many prophets, they managed to invent a wife and a son of God. But my friend, the truth is that you Muslims were not far behind them either. He spoke, especially emphasizing the last part of his statement. I replied as a rejoinder, and today both Christians and Muslims have had to suffer the consequences for the same. As I said so, the scenes of events that I had just witnessed a few moments ago were alive in my mind.